Hello, sweet souls. How are you? How are you feeling? How is your heart? How is your sweet soul? I am really, really happy to be here with you today. I want to first point out that it's dark. It is dark today. The weather is very gloomy, and I love these days. I feel like it's foreshadowing the new moon, the dark moon, that's approaching in a few days. I am coming in with the resonance of this week starting January 26th. And for me, the resonance is what is felt between words, between moments, between feelings, between us, right? At the soul level, at the soul field level. And when I come in, I share stories and messages. And I think this transmission has fewer themes that are very deep, very wide. And I want to share what's coming through as support during this time of transition. First, I always like to acknowledge the Mayan sacred calendar and that I am a student of the calendar. I will be for decades upon decades. And we're moving through a very interesting time. We restarted the 260-day ceremonial cycle in the Mayan sacred calendar. But very specifically, we're in the middle of 3 days. We're smack in the middle of 3 days that I have now lived through for several years, and they hold much wisdom. I love these days. I pay particular attention to these 3 days, 2 Tihash, 3 Kawak, and 4 Akpu, that combination of days. Now, that will translate in 2025 as January 25th, January 26th, and January 27th, okay? But every year it's different, right? I also want to sort of say that I follow those days very specifically because 2 Tihash is my Mayan birthday. It's the energy I carry in this lifetime, the core energy. And so I'm always noticing what comes before and what comes after the 40 days around my particular birthday or the birthday of people who I interact with on a regular basis. And I want to share what these days are because I think they could be transformative for you as well. So Tutihash is the energy of polarities, dualities, decisions, relationships, sacrifice, combined with that of the surgeon or the warrior healer or the sculptor, the energy that cuts away at dis-ease or what is no longer needed in order to reveal the truth, a kind of truth, right? This energy has been very, very loud for me through much of my lifetime. But on Saturday, we did that. And then today is 3 Kawak. And that is the energy of the storm, of the washing away of what was cut the day before, of the rebirth, of the renewal, right? Of that process of washing it away. And there's also connection to family and community in this energy, right? And the sacred number 3 is an internal number. It is an internal process. We are internal, reflecting within. So today we're cutting away, or we're washing away what was cut yesterday. And tomorrow is 4 Akpu. And that is a energy of wholeness because of the 4, a stable energy, or a more stable energy, let's say, with the support of the 4 elements and the 4 directions and the 4 pillars that hold up the earth in Mayan cosmology. The Akpu is the energy of divinity, is the energy for me, of love, of what is sacred, of revealing the divinity within. And so these 3 days are very powerful days. On one day, we cut away what's no longer needed. The next day, we wash it away and allow the rebirth. And on the 3rd day, we allow for the divinity, the gold, to shine through. And when I say divinity, it probably means a lot of things to a lot of people. For me, it means the consciousness of love, the consciousness of creation, the consciousness of compassion, right? That is what shines through for me on the 3rd day. So, absent of this moment, this Tutihash 3 Kawak 4 Akpu combination is sort of like a beautiful metaphor for life in many ways. And so I notice it, and I allow messages to stream through very strongly on those days. And we're combining that with so much going on in the sky, right? So many different planetary alignments, which you've probably heard a ton about, and I'm not going to talk about. And we're also moving through reactionary times, and in many ways, revolutionary times. So there's a few messages that I want to share as we move through this cycle and move through the rest of the week. And the first one is, through it all, protect your peace. Go within. Because there's so much happening outside of you. And yes, it is the responsibility of all to kind of take that in, to see that, to witness it, to bear it, to process it, to offer our support, our help, our responsibility toward what is happening in the world. And the only way that we can be the revolutionaries that we are, make the impact we wish to make, the only way you can make that impact, you can be the revolutionary, is if you offer it from a place of peace. So protecting your peace, your silence, your inner space, allowing your wisdom to rise is super important right now. That word, those 3 words, protect your peace, actually came to me many years ago through a very sort of human, practical situation. I was in New York City in a hotel on a bit of a holiday, and I was sort of in a phase of my life where I was dating quite a bit. And I remember meeting someone who was not too far away, but far enough. I think he was a mile or 2 away from me. But like the distance between boroughs is enough. It's like significant. And he wanted to get together. He wanted to meet. He wanted to have a first date. And I remember being in this hotel and feeling the energy of Manhattan all around me. And I had connected with someone in the restaurant. I think they were the restaurant manager. And I think I had just had a meal at the bar and connected with this individual. And I was in my room, and this person was texting me asking to go out on a date. And I remember hearing, go downstairs and ask the restaurant manager whether you should go on this date. And I thought it was really funny to hear that, right? And I didn't know what that was at the time, if it was like my intuitive body, if it was me putting something outside of me. I think more than anything, it was an ancestor speaking at that time through me, and I didn't quite know what that was. But I did as I heard, and I went downstairs and I went into the restaurant, and I think I got water and sat at the bar and waited to meet that person, the manager. And they came over and they asked me how I was doing. And I told them that there was someone who wanted to go on a date. And I was here on a holiday having sort of a beautiful, sort of independent weekend. I was doing a lot of meditative studies that weekend. So I was in meditation much of the day, several days in a row, studying. And I asked this person, the restaurant manager, I don't know, what should I do? So I put it outside of me in that moment. And I remember that they said to me, girl, protect your peace. Go back upstairs and have your own solo experience. And I wrote protect your peace down. And it's followed with me, like it's traveled with me, those 3 words. And I use it quite frequently. And so my invitation to you is to protect your peace right now. There are going to be lots of people wanting to distract you. Protect your peace, your inner space, have your experience so you can be most supportive to those outside of you as you hear the call when the time comes. The other thing I heard to offer was, I think I mentioned that we're living through reactionary times, right? Of course we are. There's so much wildness on the planet. Wildness. And let's not say good or bad in this moment. That judgment is up to you. I am trying to see it all from as much of a neutral perspective as I can. That doesn't always work, right? But I try to approach all the experiences that unfold around me from a place of neutrality. And last week in particular, there was just so much wildness in the air. And I remember I kept saying, I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm going to stay in my lane and do my work and cultivate my inner world, right? And I say it's not going to affect me. And then things will happen throughout the week, little tiny personal things, which they did, silly things. I'd get an email that kind of inflamed me, that made me so angry. Or I had an interaction on the road driving that kind of enraged me. And I'm not usually the first to anger. Anger is no longer the first emotion that I draw upon. I used to, right? Anger is us wishing to empower the vulnerability within. There's always another feeling underneath anger. Anger is a way to empower that feeling and also to protect those feelings. So whenever someone says they're angry or enraged, I know there's something else there, right? Even when it's here with me. And so these little things were happening and I was getting enraged. And I remember them sort of touching back on old wounds, really, really old wounds. And I didn't quite understand it. And I sat with it. And I knew that leading up to this weekend, the one we're in right now, I was being asked to review a lot, to service a lot of old things so that I could finally transmute them for once and for all, or as much as possible, right? And then I had a conversation with a girlfriend and I explained this to her and she explained sort of a similar thing she was going through, different situation, but as we compared stories, I realized that no matter how we try to stay out of what's happening in the world, how we try to protect our peace, there is a through line. The energy of all affects all, right? There is a thread that connects all of us. And that's why when I do this work and when I share these stories and when I meet with my clients one-on-one and when I hold ceremony with big groups of people, I generally try to stay in my inner space, in my inner world leading up to those experiences. So I could really be really clear about what I hear and feel and sense in the energy. And yet last week was really challenging, really hard. And so my invitation is to acknowledge how difficult it is right now. To acknowledge that no matter how much we wish to protect our peace, and we should still try to protect our peace, no matter how much we wish to protect our peace, there is a thread of the collective energy that ties all of us, right? So for me, divinity is all that is the connection to the collective consciousness, is the connection to love and compassion and possibility and potential. For others, it may be other things, and that's okay. We can all have our own definitions. We can all make our own meaning of the stories of our life to be able to support our becoming, our emergence in this lifetime. All good, right? Protecting your peace becomes so much more important, and also expressing your feelings becomes really important during this time. Using your voice, awakening your voice to express what you're feeling. And when I did that with this girlfriend of mine, when I gave voice to what I was moving through, I realized, yes, there was anger, but it wasn't anger. There was like this old wound from my childhood that just kept surfacing repeatedly each day as a reminder, right? As a reminder of a lot of things, and that's for me to process. But the invitation is to protect your peace, and also to realize that you are part of a collective of energy. And you're going to feel what's happening to all in some way, shape, or form. Now you can resist, you can put up a shield, and we can try to some extent to do that. And also, to some extent, it is easier to just allow it to sort of penetrate, so that we may feel it and process it and integrate it and move on to doing the things we wish to do, whatever those are. There is a message that comes up repeatedly for me, and I didn't quite understand it. And that is, until all are healed, none are healed. And now, when I connected to that through line of feeling the energy of all through these chaotic times, I know that no matter how much you are remembering how whole you are, no matter how much I remember how whole I am, we are connected to a greater consciousness that is suffering, that is in pain, right? And we can both protect our peace and cultivate our inner world, allow the emotions of what's happening to penetrate us, and then we can decide what to do about it, right? We're all here for different reasons, on different missions. Then we can decide what to do. Then you can decide what to do next. Until all are healed, none are healed. We're only as whole as all are allowed to be. So these messages are coming up in a really good timing, because in the middle of this week, we hit a new moon. It's a new moon in Aquarius. And I know the energy of Aquarius very, very well. I am an Aquarius sun. It is revolutionary. It is innovative. It is change. It is sometimes very, very fast change. It could be a 180. And as we lead up to that new moon, my invitation to you is to really embrace the dark moon phase of the new moon. You know, those 2.5 days leading up to when the first sliver of light begins to show. Those days, those hours are for us to go within and to review what happened over the last 28, 29 days, to allow what's happened to feel. You know, the dark moon is a very vital component to our becoming, to our emergence. It really is. It has been vital over the last 5 years for me to allow myself to feel during those times. I feel, and I pick apart at the threads, and I extract the lessons such that I can move on to the next cycle with wisdom, right? With wisdom, with knowing. So that is my invitation to you. There are actually a lot of invitations in this message, but my invitation to you is to use these next 2 or 3 days to really go inward, to protect your peace, to reflect, to feel into the energy of these reactionary times, these revolutionary times, and to allow your wholeness to emerge. Much of this is what I consider to be part of the process of allowing soul sovereignty, awakening the voice of the soul, and embodying its wisdom. That does not happen quickly. I don't care what anyone else tells you. I was in business for a long time, startup business, and we moved really, 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 really fast. The process of embodying wisdom, of awakening that voice, of allowing it to activate and help you integrate and process, and then connect to your most magical and gifted parts, that is a slow process. That is a tender process. That requires witnessing and noticing and allowing and being in stillness so you can hear, right? You can hear from within and you can hear from without. I do this often when I am signifying the ancestors, because the ancestors are right behind me. They always are. They are right behind you too, your ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I don't just mean people who passed, whom you know, folks you knew in this lifetime. I mean distant lineages. 6 generations, 12 generations, 20 plus generations back. Those souls empower you in this timeline. And your remembering of how whole you are in this timeline right now is not just allowing your own emergence, but it allows all those lineages to heal too, right? It allows us to heal backward and heal forward. I'm gonna say this, and I know it may be controversial, but ancestral healing is quite powerful work. When I hold ceremony and circle, we do a lot of ancestral work. And the more I have been in those spaces with myself and with groups of people and witness their healing, their wholeness, their emergence, the more I know that the tragedies and the tumultuousness happening on this planet right now, if we really knew and really accepted that the challenging behaviors that are occurring right now in this world would affect us backward and forward for generations, I think if we could really feel that, we would not allow much of it to happen. War, especially, is a very painful process. It affects lineages backward and it affects lineages forward. It gets stored in the body, it gets stored in cells, it gets stored in DNA, and it moves forward as certainly biological things, but also like as memory. And so, you remembering how whole you are now is helping everyone who came before you and everyone who will come after you. And when I say everyone who will come after you, I do not just mean that like your children and all of their children, right? Yes, it is true that I have a family of origin on this planet, in this timeline, who mean the world to me. And also, everyone I meet or interact with is soul family, period. We are all connected. And when we begin to remember that we are all connected, everything changes. And so that's a big message. I'm going to leave it there. That's a really big message. I want to leave all that with you, leave it on the altar. I trust you. You get to decide what from this message is for you and what from this message you will leave. But I am so glad that you were here with me today. I'm so glad that we could spend these moments together. And I promise I have a really good video coming in a few days. So I will be back again very, very soon. Take care.